you very much for joining. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my research ideas. Now I'm going to present my screen, my slides. Before going that, I'd like to say that I consider this session as a sharing session. Quantitative research method, it needs at least one semester to talk on, to discuss, to understand. But I'm going to get only 20 to 30 minutes. So within that time, to covering the whole thing is not possible. So which is why its importance. So I'm not going to go to the deep of theoretical issues. I will try to stay on its practicality, and I will focus on poverty. So I'm inviting you all to my research world. I'm going to share the applications of quantitative research method in poverty research, and it is totally my perception, the way I want to apply. So here is the presentation outline. At first, I will be discussing a little bit on quantitative research method, its application in poverty research. Then I will shed light slightly on field experiment, simulation, survey, multivariate analysis, and correlational study. And in the end, I will talk why the quantitative research is important in terms of poverty research. So quantitative method, it was being popularized in the late 19th century, and that stays until the mid of 20th century. After that, the research world witnessed the popularity of qualitative method and mixed method, because it was needed to go into deep, to be narrative, and to justifiable. So in terms of justification, they prefer mixed method, the mixture of qualitative or quantitative and quantitative. So the reason behind being popular of quantitative method in the early 19th century, late 19th century, was because of industrial revolution. A lot of market research was done. So anyway, quantitative method is a means of testing objective theories. It basically examines the relationship among variables. And it tests hypotheses. The most beautiful thing is it can generalize the findings. And it replicates the findings as well. So if we see this methodology from ontological and epistemological perspective, we'll find that it believes in objectivism. It says that there is an independent reality of everything. The knowledge is based on experience of sense, and it can be obtained by observation and experiment, which is why it embraced experiments, statistical experiment. And it also embraced a positivistic approach. So that assumes that reality is objectively given and it is measurable. And the world operates by law and cause and effects. So in a nutshell, it believes in the independent reality and on experience and sense. And it also believes in the in measurability, that things can be measured and things are related, interrelated. under the law of cause and effect. So let me cast some light on poverty research. So I did some research, some analysis, which is also quantitative. I collected data of last 10 years, and I found that I compiled here qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method because I wanted to show something. If we see from 2010 to 2015, in 2010, researchers were paying very high attention to poverty research, but it went down in 2015, and then suddenly it goes up. And it seems after 2017, it is going stably, but still the number of researchers is very low. Same thing we find in quantitative research. But I was thinking, why did it happen? Why poverty research was being less important by the time? Then this graph gave me some ideas. Actually, the poverty scenario in the world is being decreased gradually. In 1990s, almost 36% people were living in extreme poverty. In 2015, we found that came down to 9.9%. Only 750 million people, they were living in extreme poverty. By 2018, it is actually a prediction because there is no hard data on it. The World Bank always does this survey in every 5 years, so hopefully we will get data this year, the real data. But World Bank made a prediction that it is now 650 million. So now, in 2008, the world was suffering from a recession, which is why the aftermath of recession most probably pursued researchers to do poverty research. But as this graph said, by 2015, the poverty went down drastically. So the necessity of poverty research probably is a hypothetical statement because these are the two things I could connect. On the other hand, if we see here, the mixed method was being popularized because previously quantitative research was mostly appreciated by the business researcher. But when it came to academic paradigm, academicians, they preferred mixed method because it gives better justification and more understanding, and it connects two worlds in terms of ontology and epistemology. So here, see the scenario of quantitative method. In 2016, we can see its rise, but it goes down again. Now, let us go back to quantitative methods. It's several approaches, and I want to share here how I like to use it in my research. So in quantitative method, there are 5 approaches. Those are very popular: field experiment, simulation, survey, multivariate analysis, and correlational study. So field experiment, it is actually experimental research. So in this research, a researcher wants to experiment by making control group and measuring group. Researcher wants to see how new thing works. So researcher makes a design and do a pre-test and post-test and compares. Then he does some kind of statistical analysis, interpret the data, and shows the relationship and generalize the report. So in this case, if I implement it in poverty research, I want to do this. If we produce new product for poverty alleviation, so microfinance within the context of microfinance. So we provide microfinance to those people who wants to generate income through entrepreneurial exercise. In that case, nowadays, microfinance, they started providing training in order to enhance entrepreneurial exercise. So if Microfinance Institute offers several schemes, therefore the training should be also different. So in that case, we can use this technique of quantitative research. So let's say if Microfinance Institute offers training for microfinance scheme A and training for microfinance scheme B, so it can control age and gender, and there should be two groups, measurement group and control group. Then it can do test, pre-test. In the end, the feasibility of training, its effect on entrepreneurial practices can be identified. So this is how field experiment can be applied in poverty research. So if we go to simulation, it is always an artificial world where researcher wants to put the objects, the samples, and to see whether the population, means the sample can perform in a different situation. In this case, researcher makes hypothesis, and from that artificial world, from his observation, he manipulates and controls the environment, and from that observation, he does hypothesis testing and comes into a decision and generalize it. So in such case, if we want to use it in poverty research, how can I do it? So I thought this way. COVID-19 aftermath, it changed the whole world, the business world. So now companies are going online, and organizations, they're using different type of management. So I made this title this way: the changing pattern of the microbusiness management due to COVID-19 aftermath, and experiment on the microfinance clients. So here, as a researcher, if I create an artificial environment which is very close to the real environment, the environment of management, and if I collect data and simulate, so we will see whether the poor borrowers who needs to change their business pattern can exercise the new way of doing business. Or if we want to install, or if we want to see the new type of managerial competencies, those are needed for this changing business environment. Let's say if it is for and loss sharing microfinancing scheme that requires different types of managerial competencies. So if we do simulation experiment, and if we want to see whether the respondent or the clients or prospective clients of microfinance have the required competencies of getting profit and loss sharing microfinance scheme. So still, we can use this type of simulation and we will get the result, appropriate result. So survey method, in quantitative research world, survey method is the most popular one. Here we try to explore the real world. So we define population and we define sample size, collect data, data analysis, interpretation, and generalization. Survey method is very popular in business research. So I think everybody knows about it since it is very common. But this survey method can extensively be used in microfinance, in poverty research as well. If we want to measure microcredit clients' attitude, perception, and knowledge to a certain product, certain scheme, or if we want to measure borrowers' satisfaction, dissatisfaction, or microfinance products and services, or their decision-making for using microloans, or whether they are switching to new products or new microfinance institution, or their household management, etc. Or if microfinance institute develops new financial products, and if it wants to see borrowers' perception towards these products, their acceptance, their reaction, survey method seems very very appropriate and suitable. Then multivariate analysis. Multivariate analysis, when we want to see more than two variables, independent variables, and their impact on dependent variables. When we want to see many factors affecting on a certain thing. So we do multivariate analysis. So in multivariate analysis, we need to develop a model. And we need to justify it because this analysis is a bit tricky, a bit critical and technical as well, because here, all the independent variables, they should have some kind of linear relationship, but there shouldn't be multi-collinearity. There should not be singularity problem. So researcher must define the model with appropriate variables, and this model should be well fitted and free from those multi-collinearity and singularity problem. So after that, the data should be analyzed and generalize the output. In this regard, researcher has to justify the hypotheses. So this multivariate analysis technique can be used in poverty research as well. So in terms of multiple factors, we will find a lot of factors that are affecting on household economic portfolio. Those are affecting or contributing to poverty. Multiple factors, those are contributing to education. Students who are from poor household, they cannot go to school. So it is not only economic factor. There should be several other factors involved that hinders his going to school. And then for poverty, due to some other socio-economic issues, we'll find juvenile delinquency, domestic violence, crime, etc. So this research can be done by using multivariate analysis. And correlational study. Correlational study believes that in natural setting, it should be emphasized, in a natural setting, something are correlated. Variables are correlated. There is a relationship between two variables. So here, researchers use several techniques to measure the correlation. Researchers introduce some hypotheses and utilize some statistical analysis, justify the hypothesis, and thus generalize the findings. So in poverty, we can see that there are several issues are correlated. So, for instance, household income. It is correlated with academic performance. It is correlated with malnutrition. It is correlated with crime. It's correlated with disease. For instance, in Bangladesh, COVID-19 is spreading dramatically, dangerously, because of poverty, because of socio-economic issues, because of household size, because of illiteracy. So, and it is very, very difficult for the government to stop the spread. Even the whole country is under lockdown, but people are not following the lockdown rules. They are not law-abiding now because of several issues. And the root issue is poverty. So in correlational study, researcher wants to see the correlation between two variables in a natural setting. The researcher believes that naturally two things can be correlated. So hence, researcher sets some kind of statistical analysis and determine the correlation, the existence of correlation between or among the variables and generalize the result. So in this case, this correlational study is very important and useful for poverty research as well. For instance, household income, it is correlated with academic performance of students, their malnutrition, juvenile delinquency, and spread of disease. If we see the last one, and if we exemplify a country like Bangladesh, where poverty incidence is very high, population density is very high. So even under lockdown, people cannot stay at home. They need to go out, and crime rate is increasing, and people are not following the rules, government rules, because poverty is pursuing them, forcing them to go out to do crime, poverty and hunger. So there are so many other things, socioeconomic factors. Those are intensifying poverty. Those are correlated to poverty. So those correlation and influence and its magnitude can be determined by using this technique. So I'm near to end of my session. Though at first we found that poverty research was declining. The number of paper was declining. But a new world is appearing to us very soon. The World Bank estimates that 40 million to 60 million people will newly fall into extreme poverty this year, and due to this COVID-19 phenomenon. And global extreme poverty rate will rise up to 720 million in 2020. And if we want to see the current scenario, 10% people, they are actually living below the poverty line. $2 per day, their income. So that is very tough life. They're suffering. 39 child, they're dying before being 5-year-old. And 63 million children we found in 2016, they didn't attend school. And poverty is severely dominating the sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. So Asian researchers, we need to be poverty focused. If we want to improve, if we want to explore the real poverty scenario, and if we want to develop policy for poverty alleviation. So that's all for today. As a researcher, poverty researcher, I believe that quantitative research method would be very useful for poverty research. Though we need other research methods, qualitative and mixed methods, in order to better understand, in order to go deep, but that could be another session of research sharing. So thank you very much for being with me, and if you have any question, please.